Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mandeep Katra. I'm a Public and Media Relations Officer here at Peel Regional Police. Before we begin, please turn off your cell phones. This update is regarding the multi-jurisdictional homicide and shooting investigations. We ask that all questions be related to this specific event. If anyone has any inquiries about separate incidents, we would gladly invite you to stay after the news conference and speak with one of our media relations officers. After this announcement, there will be an opportunity for questions. I ask that you please limit your question to one question with one follow-up question, so we can answer as many inquiries as possible. Please use the microphone to ensure your questions are clearly heard and understood. A media release will be issued shortly after the conclusion of this media update and will include links to all the information provided here today. A full video of this news conference will also be available on our Peel Regional Police YouTube channel. I would now like to call upon Chief Nishant Doyappa to the podium.
Thank you, Manny. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending. I'm Chief Nishant Doyappa of Peel Regional Police, and it's my pleasure. Joining me today is Chief Stephen Tanner from Halton Regional Police, Chief Frank Bergen from Hamilton Regional Police, Staff Superintendent Rob Johnson of the Toronto Police, Her Worship, City of Mayor Bonnie Crombie. We also have Chair of the Police Services Board, Mr. Ron Chatta, and of course, Detective Michael Mavity from Peel Regional Police's Homicide Bureau. The speakers you'll be hearing from today regarding the investigation will be Chief Tanner, Chief Bergen, and myself. We will also welcome Mayor Crombie for her remarks. But I want to acknowledge that we're appreciative of Toronto Police for being present. We continue to mourn with them. Thank you, Staff Superintendent Johnson, for being here on behalf of Chief Raymer. The devastating events from Monday, September 12th, across Peel and Halton and into Hamilton have resulted in the senseless death of 48-year-old Constable Andrew Hong, a 22-year veteran of the Toronto Police Service. His family, the Toronto Police, and may I say our larger police family are continuing to struggle with the loss of Andrew. We also have lost 38-year-old Shakeel Ashraf, an auto repair shop owner in Milton and a young father of 2 children whose loss leaves a hole in the heart of many who loved him. We do not want to forget that this has affected many lives. They were members of our community. And I say our community because we are, although we're in uniform, we are volunteers, coaches, family members, and we know that Mr. Ashraf also had many contacts that are deeply affected in the community. But in addition to those that were murdered, there were 3 more innocent people who were shot for absolutely no reason, one of whom continues to fight for their life while on life support. It is absolutely unacceptable, and we recognize we need to do everything possible to provide answers that are much needed for the loved ones of those left behind and those affected. As a chief of police and a member of our community, I'm here today to share additional details of the investigation. I also want to use this opportunity to reaffirm that we have absolutely placed every resource possible to affirm that we're doing everything we can to get the answers we need as it pertains to these horrible incidents across municipalities. We are committed to answering the why. This should never, as we can all obviously say, should never happen again. And I hope that our understanding through this investigation will help us achieve that. So with that, let me begin. On September 12th at approximately 2:15, officers responded to a shooting at a coffee shop at 3110 Argentia Road in Mississauga. Upon arrival, officers found Constable Hong deceased at the scene. The first officers who responded were a combination of Constable Hong's colleagues who were training with him at the time, as well as other subsequent responding officers from Peel Regional Police. At the time, Constable Hong was in Mississauga for a training day to instruct a motorcycle operations course that was sponsored by Peel Regional Police at one of our training facilities nearby. At the time of the incident, Constable Hong was on his lunch break and had offered to get his colleagues, who he was training with, coffee. This is when the suspect ambushed and shot him at close range. We have since learned that the suspect arrived at the location 2 hours and 15 minutes prior to the shooting of Officer Hong. In our media brief on Monday evening, we had shared information that another victim in Mississauga was transported to a local trauma center. What happened was, after the murder of Constable Hong, the suspect immediately fled the coffee shop across the road to an adjacent parking lot, shot and carjacked another victim, and stole a vehicle. That victim is now in stable condition, but has suffered life-altering injuries. We also reported on Monday evening that the same suspect then proceeded to the town of Milton in the region of Halton, where he shot 3 people. He killed one, injured another, and has left a third to fight for their life while he fled. Shortly after the shooting in Milton, the suspect was located in the city of Hamilton by both Hamilton and Halton officers and was later pronounced deceased as a result of an interaction with police while attempting to take him into custody. And for that, the Special Investigations Unit is investigating and involved. Since that time, our team has been working around the clock with our partners to find answers. We have formed a multi-jurisdictional case management team, which includes Halton Police, Hamilton Police, and York Regional Police. We are using a model of provincial framework. If you're wondering why York Regional Police is involved, it is a mandated element to bring other partners in to help facilitate a complex multi-jurisdictional model. I'd also like to acknowledge the tireless work of this multi-agency team that is progressing through the investigation. What I will do now for you will be to share the suspect's photo, pictures of his car, and some details that we've learned in order to ask for all of your assistance, the public's assistance, in helping us provide answers, which I spoke about earlier. So with that, we'd like to officially state that 40-year-old Sean Petrie of no fixed address has been identified as the person believed to be responsible. And a picture of Sean Petrie will be adjacent to me right now and will be shared with all our media outlets. I can advise that Petrie had an extensive criminal record, which includes convictions for assault, armed robbery, carry a concealed weapon, careless storage of a firearm, possession of a loaded, prohibited, or restricted firearm, breach of probation and failure to comply with a recognizance, several property and driving offenses, and he was also the subject of a firearms prohibition. I can advise that in March 2007, he was placed on the national flagging system after being deemed a high risk to reoffend for an offense which occurred in 2005. His last conviction was in 2015 for a criminal driving offense. I can also say that investigators have interviewed known family of Mr. Petrie and learned he was estranged from them, and depending on which family member that they had spoken to, for a period of 1 to over 5 years. Investigators also learned that prior to the start of this tragedy, Sean Petrie drove to the location of where Constable Hong was murdered in a red Toyota Corolla, where he parked the vehicle in an adjacent lot to the coffee shop. The car had an Ontario license plate of CXMM077. A picture of that is adjacent to us. Again, that's CXMM077. Crucial to understanding why and how this happened will be his activity, his lifestyle, the individuals who he interacted with leading up to the incident, and this is why we need your help. To assist us in doing this and providing all the answers to not only our police family, to the family of those affected, I and my colleagues are appealing for the public's assistance. Anyone with information on this suspect, on Sean Petrie, on these incidents or the activities leading up to it, please contact us at Peel Regional Police. Our number is 905-453-2121, and the extension is 3205. And as always, the option exists to call any of the other agencies that are involved. But also, again, I want to highlight, you can call or even go online to Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS, where you may also remain anonymous. Again, I want to highlight on Monday the 12th for the swift action and response of all those involved, including our partner agencies and the public's understanding and patience during an investigation which no doubt due to the provincial alert affected everybody in Ontario. I would like to share my utmost gratitude. Monday's tragedy is a horrific act of violence that should never occur again. We share in the loss and grieve with all our communities and all those who have suffered by the injuries and who were impacted by it. To that, the Toronto Police, loved ones of Constable Hong, as well as the loved ones of Shakeel Ashraf, Shakeel Ashraf, and all those who knew him, we express our deepest condolences and heartfelt sympathies to you. At this point, I'd like to invite Chief Stephen Tanner from Halton Regional Police for his comments.
Thank you, Chief Deriapa. And I share with you our mutual appeal for public information in relation to Sean Petrie and his history. Good morning to our media partners. As you know, these last few days have been an incredibly challenging time, not only for the policing community, but also for our entire communities of Halton, Peel, Toronto, Hamilton, and in fact, Canada as a whole. Please allow me to say something as a police chief here today. Guns kill people, and illegal guns kill people. And in Ontario, when it comes to crime handguns, and it was a handgun used in these horrific crimes, close to 90% of those handguns can and are traced back to their origin in the United States. Let's do something about that. In addition to Chief Deriapa's comments about Mr. Petrie, obviously he was not a lawful gun owner. Given the events as they unfolded later on Monday, the crime handgun used in these shootings is rightfully in the possession of the Special Investigations Unit. And we are waiting for information from that firearm that will allow us and will allow our FATE team at the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario to trace that specific firearm. Returning to the incidents that occurred in the region of Halton and the town of Milton, on September 12th at approximately 2:50 p.m., our police officers responded to multiple reports of a shooting at an auto shop located at 32 Bronte Street South in the town of Milton. Upon their arrival, they located 3 victims who had been shot. The first victim, 38-year-old Shakeel Ashraf, was pronounced deceased at the scene. Mr. Ashraf was the owner of MK Auto Repairs and a well-liked and well-respected member of the Milton community. Sadly, he leaves behind a wife and 2 daughters. The second victim is a 28-year-old international exchange student who works part-time at the automotive shop. Sadly, he remains on life support and is not expected to survive. We are not releasing his name at this time out of respect for his family, but we anticipate doing so at a future date and time. The third victim, a 43-year-old male, was also an employee of MK Auto Repairs. He was shot in the leg and has since been released from hospital and is continuing to recover at home. But let us also remember that other innocent civilians and employees were present and will be traumatized by this event forever. Shortly after the incident in Milton, our investigation led to the suspect and the stolen vehicle being located in a cemetery in the city of Hamilton, close to the Burlington-Hamilton border. At that time, an altercation took place between the suspect, Sean Petrie, and members of both the Hamilton and Halton Police Services. As a result, the suspect was pronounced deceased at the scene. As mentioned, the Special Investigations Unit is now involved and will investigate and review that incident. I am hopeful that the SIU investigation will be completed in a relatively short time. Monday's incident and the criminality that took place had no jurisdictional boundaries, and we will deal with it in the same manner. The Halton, Peel, Hamilton, and other police services involved will continue to work in full cooperation and corroboration with one another as we do, and as we piece together further details of this violent crime spree. And this was an excellent example of the multi-jurisdictional capabilities of these three police services, plus Toronto and others, to work together quickly, effectively, and efficiently. Our thoughts are and always will be with the victims and their families during this difficult time, and as they deal with the loss of their loved ones and all those who have been impacted by these tragic incidents. If anyone listening has been affected by these tragic incidents in Halton or Peel or elsewhere, there will be victim services units available to assist you. To all of the frontline responders, our 911 communicators here in Peel and in Halton, staff, and all of our policing and community partners, I thank you for all of your support and for the bravery and heroism that you so clearly exhibited on this terrible day. Your collective efforts to ensure the safety of our communities is now and will be forever most sincerely appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief, and I'd like to now invite up Chief Bergen from Hamilton Police.
Thank you very much, Chief, and I'm not going to go over a lot of the details that were so eloquently stated by Chief of Steve Tanner. But the reality is the Hamilton Police Service is dedicated to serve and protect in partnership with our community. What occurred on Monday, September the 12th, was demonstrating how we serve and protect in partnership with our policing community. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our policing partners who stood shoulder to shoulder to bring calm back to the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. Specifically, I would like to thank the Halton Regional Police Service, the Toronto Police Service, the Peel Regional Police Service, and the Ontario Provincial Police for coming into my community. On behalf of the City of Hamilton, on behalf of my service, thank you not only for bringing calm and stopping a risk to our greater community, but doing what we do every day, serve and protect in partnership with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Bergen, and I again want to acknowledge the presence of Toronto Police that are here today. We've gone through the comments from the investigative and police response, but as Chief Bergen highlighted, this has impacted a community, and I'd be remiss to not have our mayor for the city of Mississauga, Mayor Crombie, come and provide her remarks.
Thank you, Chief. I also want to thank not only our own chief, but Chief Tanner, Chief Bergen, and all the members from TPS. Thank you for coming today, and good morning. I want to start off by offering my deepest condolences to the friends, the families, and the colleagues of Constable Andrew Hong and Shakeel Ashraf. I can only begin to imagine the pain and the grief that they are feeling. It's indescribable. I want you to know that all of Mississauga mourns with you. To the families with loved ones who are in the hospital fighting for their lives, I want you to know that we are in your corner. We are praying for you and for your quick recovery. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the police officers of Peel, Halton, Hamilton, and the OPP who responded to the call and apprehended the suspect as quickly as possible, as well as our fire and emergency services and our paramedic crews who cared for those who were injured, and the 911 operators who took those calls and we know are traumatized. I'm grateful for the work that you do here in Peel each and every day. I also want to acknowledge how traumatic this has been for our residents who witnessed this violence, and I encourage you to use the 24/7 supports available through the crisis support of Peel Dufferin. I'm truly heartbroken that this has happened in our city, and that the families who lost their loved ones must now find a new way forward with this unexpected grief. Over the past few days, we've seen our community come together to mourn. We have seen that love is more powerful than hate, and that by being there for one another and by honoring their lives, it is our hope that each day that passes gets a little bit easier. At Shakeel Ashraf's funeral yesterday afternoon, I saw firsthand the outpouring of love and support, the love and the fond memories shared by his family and friends and colleagues, and the impact that he had on their lives and on the community was very clear. I also spoke with the family of the second victim, the innocent victim in Mississauga, who was critically injured and is still in the hospital receiving critical care, to relay our devastation and our support as they begin that long road to recovery. And when laying flowers at the scene of Constable Hong's death, it was very clear from the growing memorial of flowers and messages just how many lives he touched and how shaken our community is over these unprovoked and devastating attacks. This was a very dark day in our city's history, and one that I hope we never see again. And once again, my heart is with the families of the victims and all of those affected by this tragedy. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Thank you to our first responders and to all of you that protect our community and keep our community safe. Mississauga, we're going to get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, we're going to transition into a period of questions and which we will attempt to respond to. We do have Detective Mavity from our Homicide Bureau here to speak to some of the questions that we're able to respond to. I just want to highlight that any questions pertaining to the final interaction with Sean Petrie are, of course, subject to the Special Investigations Unit, and we won't be prepared to really disclose or discuss that. I do also want to acknowledge that there may be some questions about potential funeral arrangements for Constable Hong, which I'm advised that Chief Raymer from the Toronto Police will make a separate and subsequent announcement related to that, so we won't be commenting on those details at the moment. And with that, I'll just open it up for questions. We have, obviously the range of individuals to speak to them. I guess we're doing that here.
Shauna with City News. I guess a lot of people, family, friends, the community, everyone wants to know or very curious about the motive in this case. We do know that the suspect had a history with Shakeel Ashraf. He worked at the auto body shop about a year ago for a couple of weeks. A close family friend mentioned that there may have been some threats after, I guess, the suspect was fired. Is that being investigated? Is there anything that you can share on motive?
No, thank you for the question. I also have Superintendent Kevin Mahar here from our Regional Investigative Services. We do acknowledge the suspect did work at the auto body shop for a short period of time. And we have heard rumors of threats, but have not got evidence of that as of yet. So that will be a part of our investigation.
And I guess my follow-up would be, when it comes to Constable Andrew Hong, why did it start with that? There were also reports that the suspect may have been going after his firearm. Is there any truth to that?
I'm going to invite Mike to top up on this,
Sure.
but absolutely. So the current priority is to examine whether it was random or targeted, and both those laneways have a myriad of things to unpack. So Mike, are you in a position to comment on both those elements?
Just in regards to your question, to echo the chief's statements, yes, we are open to whether it was targeted or random. That's something we're open to, and we're exploring. At this point, I believe the motive was that he was a uniform officer and he was deliberately targeted. With respect to your second portion, did he attempt to disarm him? Yes, he did.
Yeah, here. Hi, I'm Andriane with CBC French. If anybody speaks French, it would be great if you could also answer maybe those questions in French. Otherwise, I have follow-up questions.
Sure. I'm going to invite my executive director and oversight of corporate communications to be with me. I'll answer in English, and then he can assist in French. This is Charles Payette, please.
Well, the question about the motives, about the connection between the gunman and Mr. Ashraf, if you could answer that question in French, it would be great. Thank
Sure.
you.
Comme le chef a mentionné un petit peu avant, présentement, nos enquêteurs sont en train de confirmer les relations entre les individus impliqués dans les incidents. Ce qu'on peut dire, c'est, à ce moment-ci, on peut le confirmer que le suspect a travaillé pour un court moment au body shop. Nos enquêteurs sont en train de continuer à regarder toutes les preuves qu'on peut collecter. Tout supporte la relation entre toutes les parties.
Par rapport aux motivations, justement, par rapport au... Excusez, je pense en anglais. Le shooting du constable Hong, quelles pourraient être les motivations?
Oui, bien, comme nos enquêteurs ont mentionné dans la question avant, oui, on croit que le shooting du constable Andrew Hong était targeté parce qu'il portait l'uniforme. Comme notre enquêteur a mentionné, le suspect a essayé de désarmer l'agent. Donc, les preuves qu'on a présentement supportent que c'était dirigé contre l'agent.
Pourriez-vous dire votre prénom, votre nom de famille et les éplés et votre titre?
Oui, Charles Payette, directeur exécutif de la police.
Charles Payette, on l'écrit comment?
P-A-Y-E-T-T-E.
Perfect. Can I just ask one more question because that was just okay? What do we know about the shooter's possible links to gangs? Because that's what we learned from documents from the court earlier.
We have nothing to suggest at this point that he has any gang ties.
Actual gang ties, or did he previously have any?
At that point, at this point, I have no information regarding that.
Thank you.
Good morning. Moment Qureshi with City News 680. Chief, I don't know if this is for you or for somebody else, but the active shooter alert that went out on the day of, there's been some criticism about the fact that it maybe went out too late or later than it should have, and that even when it went out, it didn't have enough details and the public kind of didn't know what they were dealing with. So I was wondering if you could address that in terms of how that goes out, what information is in there, and what happened there.
Sure, Moment. Thank you for the question. So two pieces. The provincial alert system can be generated by any municipal or provincial law enforcement entity, and there is a process, a well-defined process for how that happens, and it is intended to be swift, immediate, based on the need. But the thresholds are defined in a real good framework, which has ultimately a provincial approval through the OPP Commissioner Tom Creek. And I can say knowing how that's the process worked, as you can imagine, and I think we all saw it in the media the day of. There were a variety of conflicting pieces of information as to who was responsible, even from race and vehicle description. And so, if you can imagine, while here at Peel we're responding to the initial circumstance, and then in a very short time, Halton has the requisite incident. The ability to connect them, is it's very short-lived. We as a police sector are alert to what's happening in multiple jurisdictions. So, the timing I can affirm was as soon as we were able to extrapolate that there was multiple incidents happening. It went through the immediate process. It couldn't get any quicker from the release, so I can allay any concerns that it was delayed. The second part, and we've had many questions from the public about, you get this alert, and people wonder, well, what, we need more detail, because what does this mean, the vagueness? And I would just say is, the purpose of the alert is because we don't know where he is. We don't know if the vehicle's changed. We don't know a lot of those. And if somebody listens to that alert, shelters in place, and it mitigates the loss of one life, we've achieved our purpose. So, to those people who, may be frustrated with the absence of detail in it, if we had the detail, we would put it out. If we had more detail, we may not have even issued the alert. We would have probably gone right to the subject. So, the intent of it is to mitigate any risk to the community. If it takes, and I've heard people say that they received the alert and they made a phone call to their loved ones or X, Y, and Z and just say, stay inside, don't go out for lunch, don't do what you need to do. That's what we're there for. And right now, that is the best mechanism, particularly because you can't zero in on a particular geographic area. It goes to every cell phone. If you're from Northern Ontario and you happen to be in the GTA, you're going to get it. So, I can assure the public that as frustrating or as ambiguous it might seem, it certainly achieved its purpose.
Great. Just a follow-up for you, Chief.
Sorry, I didn't know if Chief.
I just wanted to add the comment, communication between ourselves and Peel was almost instantaneous. We have a lot of connections, senior management levels, obviously deputy chiefs and investigators. But it's also a perspective thing. First of all, as Nish said, we cannot put out a meaningful alert unless there's something to put out in it. And we had no reason to know or believe that the two shootings were connected until we had some information and evidence, and the vehicle was key in our doing that, and then to identify the person. But the communication was very quick, and in fact, I have had members of the public and members of some of the media here comment how amazingly quick it was. So there is always going to be someone who thinks it took too long, and someone else who thinks, wow, did you ever do that fast? So I think we did get it out quickly. In fact, by the time the alert came out for people in Peel, the suspect wasn't here anymore, and he had moved on from Milton. So it was so quick and so fluid. But I'm thankful for the communication staff in Peel and Halton for getting that out as quick as they did.
And Chief, just to follow up for you, this is obviously an understatement, but it's been a very difficult week for police forces in the GTA with the murder of Constable Hong, the passing of Constable Gillespie yesterday. Just overall, how are you guys doing this week? It's obviously difficult to stay on the job and do the job, but also deal with what's happening.
Well, I think just on behalf of all the chiefs and we have the role of standing out front of a camera from time to time and making decisions, but it's really off the back, so to speak, of our civilian and sworn members who are 24/7 doing it. The impact on them is tremendous. It is tremendous, and there's so many unseen elements of it. I think everybody gets into this profession and anticipates that at any point they could be impacted by some of these tragic events, particularly of the loss of Constable Gillespie yesterday in York Region. I think the reality is, while these incidents are happening, simultaneously there are thousands of other officers continuing to respond to thefts, break and enters, calls for help, mental health calls, civilian call takers receiving it. And not to be pragmatic about it, but our role continues to persist. And I think that is the cliche behind this whole scenario, is that we have a week where we've had 2 tragedies in 1 week, and many of us have been in policing for a while and have seen other ones. What we do is we find a place in a safe space to honor them, which we will next week we'll be doing without a doubt. And their memories are not forgotten, and then our commitment shifts to their friends, families, and colleagues, which we will, without a doubt, in perpetuity, honor and support. Next question.
Yeah, Chief, it's Joe Warmington from Post Media and the Toronto Sun. I'll do my best. There's a number of questions that have come out of things today. That car that you showed that he showed up in, was that his car or a stolen car?
That car, Mike, I believe, is registered to him.
The red car.
The red Toyota Corolla is registered to Sean Petrie.
You say no fixed address. Was he staying at a shelter or friends? Do we know where that is?
Mike, maybe do you want to speak to it? Probably the best.
Based on our investigation, we believe he was living in that car.
Living in Mississauga or elsewhere?
We haven't determined that yet.
2 hours and 15 minutes, Chief. He was there, and he's wearing a vest. And you mentioned earlier about the officer. Did you mean the officer was targeted or a police officer looking for a police officer?
I believe he was looking for a police officer.
So he waited 2 hours and 15 minutes looking for that. And do you think that the motive was to get the gun of the officer? He had a gun, obviously, but
That's something we're exploring at this time, and we haven't been able to come up with a definitive.
was I know you're working on these things, but was the plan always to go out to Milton, or did that come after this? Was this the original idea, or since he did that? I know it's hard to say, but it's
Again, we're still trying to figure out all that stuff. Our investigation is obviously in its infancy, and we're trying to figure out the chain of events is starting in Peel and ending towards Milton, but we're trying to figure out all that stuff.
the vest itself. And we've seen that in professional hits, and we've all covered those. Somebody wears that, and it's so that people say it's somebody with a vest. Does that play a role in it, or did he have some sort of a job that would with a vest?
Are you talking about Constable Hong's vest?
No, I'm talking about the Mr.
No, the traffic vest. That's something we're exploring to find out why he was wearing that vest. We haven't identified a place of employment for him yet.
Originally, it talked about a white man with a beard. Is there a second person, or was that just a mix-up, like there was so much that the chief mentioned?
There's not a second person that we've identified at this time. That was just a mix-up at the chaos of the initial response.
I just have one more for Chief Tanner. I want to talk about the gun. You alluded to 85% of the guns come from the U.S. Is this gun from the U.S., or do you know yet, or is that what were you trying to say there?
Yeah, actually, more recently this year, and I checked in with the people from the FATE program, firearm tracing experts at the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario. This year, the number is actually up closer to 90% of handguns used in crimes are traced back to the United States if they could be traced. There is a percentage that cannot be traced because the serial number has been obliterated and cannot be brought back, or they're ghost guns that have been manufactured. We do not know at this point if the gun is from the United States because the firearm is in the hands of the Special Investigations Unit, and we're just not able to access the serial number yet. We have to be very careful with the handling of this firearm. I'm hopeful that the FATE program will at least have the serial number soon so that we can confirm whether or not it is from the United States. But I can say, Joe, it's 90% probability that it is.
Thank you, Chief. I just have one more for the Chief, and then I'll let someone else. This matter is so disturbing on so many levels. But again, coming back to the 2 hours and 15 minutes and the idea that he was targeting a police officer, is there anything, social media or family or anything that you know of what the reason would be at all? I know that you're investigating, but I know there's maybe a little bit more to that, because it seemed like you're hanging around with Tim Hortons for 2 hours and 15 minutes waiting for an officer to come in. And he hasn't had a conviction since 2015 or 16. So it's not, it's confusing.
No, Joe, I think this is the problem and why we're here today is to, kind of shake the trees a bit and see if we can stimulate somebody that had contact with him to find out what the catalyst for that day was. As Detective Mavity spoke to, we're exploring every option. Was it specific to Constable Hong? Was it generalized to anybody in uniform? We do know that there was sufficient CCTV cameras and on-premise cameras to define that he was at the coffee shop for literally 2 hours and 15 minutes, and what made him act is one that they're exploring. So it's a tedious thing to work backwards in not just Constable Hong's activities, but also in the subject's activities.
But you haven't ruled out that it could be, because you just said it's specific to Constable Hong. Is there any arrest record in the past involving Constable Hong, or are you looking into that?
Well, Joe, I think that's point is we're going through a process of exclusion. I think sometimes to find out why and how, and I think Superintendent Mahar and Detective Mavity could speak to this, is you got to go through a process of exclusion, and any option is a possibility, right?
On the surface of it, I mean, I can't think of any way that he would know that Constable Hong would go to that Tim Hortons on that day when he was out training and he was hanging around there for 2.5 hours.
I think that's why, I think Detective Mavity's comments are, on its face, we believe is just waiting for somebody in uniform.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Chiefs and Madam Mayor, I'm here, Khalid Salama from How Toronto. I'm here to share some feedback from the community. They are a little bit confused and very angry because you are not calling things real names. This man shot and killed 2 people, one on the way and other injured. Why you are still calling him a suspect? Can you please address everybody who's watching us right now?
Yes. So, first of all, I want to acknowledge the frustration by people. The reality is, we can call him the person responsible. We can call him a murderer. On a professional level, our role is to investigate and bring somebody into the judicial system. And in those cases, we call them an accused. And in this case, he's deceased. And, so quite often, the language, and I just want to assure the community, is that is no attempt to mitigate the fact that we know he was responsible for it, and that he definitely is responsible for the 2 murders.
But still the family, friends, and the kids of Shakeel Ashraf don't know whether this man killed their father or he's still a suspect, sir.
I understand that. I'll turn that over to Steve and Tanner, who's Halton Region.
No, and I thank you, and I appreciate the question and the reasons for it. I can tell you here today, and Superintendent Mahar and I have discussed this, if the accused suspect person had not died as a result of an altercation with police, we would be in a position to charge him with murder today for what happened in Milton. And why we can say that slightly different than Peel's ongoing investigation is we have eyewitnesses to identify that he is the person who killed our fabulous Milton resident. So we can say that. We just have to have some patience with the investigative process.
Chief, excuse me, English is my second language, okay? I need to hear very clear. Did he not kill these people?
Sean Petrie killed the individual who was deceased in Milton. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much. And my follow-up is, did he or the murderer was considered to be on a probation with electronic whatever?
No, sir. He was on no current form of release, meaning that he was under no restrictions that prohibited his movement, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason with CHCH News. I don't know if this question's for either Peel, Chief Tanner, Bergen. I don't know if this is. I know SIU is investigating the incident that happened in Hamilton, but given that the motive is still being looked into, everything. Do we know why he was headed to Hamilton? Was there any reason? Was there any intent to attack somebody else?
Thank you very much, Jason, for the question. I can tell you that at 4:30, our police officers, the Hamilton Police, alongside with the Halton Regional Police, had an interaction with a male in the cemetery off York Boulevard. Shortly thereafter, that interaction caused us to notify the Special Investigations Unit. The Special Investigations has invoked, and we will await their decision at this point. That can be a question that you can ask of the Special Investigations Unit.
The motive to why he was headed to Hamilton?
I can speak to why he was encountering our members at 4:30, because they had that interaction in the cemetery, and I'll leave the rest up to the Special Investigations Unit.
Then I guess I'll shift to, thanks Chief, I'll shift to Chief Tanner. Was Halton Police on pursuit with him towards Hamilton?
No, all I can say is through our investigation, we were able to locate him in Hamilton, and after that, it's an SIU situation. We have no reason to believe there's some interest in Hamilton. It may just have been by chance.
Sorry, maybe just a side question. This jurisdictional body, is there something permanent in the works, even though given how transient the GTHA is will there be like a permanent force to deal with these issues that where crimes happen from jurisdiction to jurisdiction?
No, I think to answer your question, this is a very specific multi-jurisdictional team exclusive to the homicides and the shootings of the other victims. It is, live the lifespan of the investigation. I think your question as it pertains to, broader acts of gun and gang violence or individual acts, from time to time, and we currently do at a provincial level, all the chiefs here and more have ongoing initiatives that would be unrelated to this particular incident. Thank you.
Jason Miller, Toronto Star. Chief, have you been in communication with the SIU? You talked about the necessity to expedite getting that firearm in your hands so you can start your investigation. I mean, how does that complicate things considering evidence and
Yes, so I think, thank you, Jason, for the question. We have, as you know, both Chief Tanner and Chief Bergen have indicated the SIU's involvement with their organizations. The SIU have indicated that the incidents in Peel at the moment are not of interest to them. So, but that does provide complexities because we're all working on the same investigation. We all want to know, we all want to know things about Sean Petrie and the end outcome. So I can advise that there is currently conversations between the SIU and all three agencies in a unified way, because there is obviously common interest to further, not just to support whatever the requirements are of the SIU, but also to facilitate what we need. These things take time. And so, but I can assure you that there is connectivity through all the agencies.
And that goes to my follow-up. This is kind of a unique case where you have a shooting involving the SIU and police who come out and kind of release details, but I suspect you kind of answered it there partially because it's in multiple jurisdictions and your section of the investigation is able to be released.
That's right. We put a lot of work into talking to each agency to dialogue what we can say and when we can say it. We are also, our priority is the survivors and the families and ensuring that they have answers too. So yes, so this is, and hence the purpose for multi-jurisdictional partnership. It's inclusive of, people specifically assigned to deal with victims' families and to make sure we're lockstep in what we say. It's a big machine behind it.
You're saying that there is indication that he was living out of this motor vehicle at some point. Any hint of whether he had family or whether any luck on that?
We have spoken to 3 immediate family members, and as I had indicated earlier, all of them have communicated that they've had an estranged relationship with Sean, as little as not being in contact for 1 year, all the way up to hasn't talked to him in 5 years. And so hence, this vacuum of understanding of, who he's connected with, and, the fact that he's of no fixed address, and an inference that we believe he was living out of his vehicle, just complicates anybody's ability to know anything about him. Thank you.
I would just like to remind everyone, please, one question and only one follow-up, just to respect everyone else's time and give everyone else a fair opportunity. Thank you.
I just have one more. I just want to ask Mayor Crombie a question, because I understand that you've been in touch and trying to support the Tim Hortons staff that went through this, and maybe you can let us know how they're doing and what the plans are for reopening there.
Yeah, frankly, Joe, that is, they are all traumatized, as you would expect, and it will take some time to reopen. And of course, it's still the location of an SIU investigation, so it will take some time for the investigation to clear, and then staff to be prepared to come back to work there. The support is available to them. I've indicated 24/7 support is available should they need it, and I know Tim Hortons will also be providing those staff members the supports that they need. Thank you.
And just to follow up to all the chiefs as well, and from the board's point of view too, this is a very difficult question, but it needs to be asked. It is clearly not safe for police officers, in light of what's happened here, to go into places like that. Is there going to be some sort of a discussion about that? Because, maybe go in pairs or something where they're not going to be ambushed like this.
I don't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues, but we just know from all of us have spent time with our officers that either responded or were working that day, the civilians, and who hasn't gone to get coffee for their colleagues, whether you're a police officer or not. We have obviously the most, a tremendous amount of investment in ensuring that our members that are in operational functions have situational awareness. We train, we constantly think and talk. If you have a family member that is a police officer, that they're always thinking in a different light. But the reality is, you can't do that when you're just going to get a coffee or a bite to eat all the time, and hence the senselessness of it. So Joe, I think if you're asking, is this going to result in like an overhaul in how we do things, I think clearly there's opportunities to chat about, what happens, and to double down on what our team and people can do to ensure that they're safe. But, the reality is this could happen to any officer at any given point.
Clara Pasica, CBC. So you've implied that this wasn't some sort of police chase that led police to be in Hamilton in this cemetery. Can you speak about how this person was found to be in Hamilton? Was it a result of someone providing a tip? You had sent out this emergency alert. Was it that he'd been spotted with cameras? How did you come to find him in that place?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing that I will say in relation to that is that there were investigative techniques which assisted us in locating the suspect, which resulted in both Hamilton and Halton officers responding there, but I'm not going to speak to the specific techniques.
Okay, and my next question is about the decision to name the suspect at different times. Initially it was, I believe, spelt a different way. The suspect was 30, then it was 40, but there was also a period over the last couple of days where you chose not to name the suspect in communications that you had. So I'm just wondering if you can speak about that decision to name him now and along the way. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I can just clarify from an official standpoint from any of our partnering agencies, just 45 minutes ago was the first time we've actually officially identified him. I think, as you all know, there are people that may have known his name. This is the first time we've officially identified it. This is, just to clarify, is the first time we've actually had an opportunity to do a media update since the night of the incident. So any misinterpretation of his name or identity had nothing to do with any of our originating agencies.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Last question, please.
Good morning, Steve Ryan, 24. Chief Bergen, Chief Tanner, good morning. My social media is lighting up with people wanting to pass on the good police work that they say your officers have done. So they want me to extend that congratulations to your officers. And the big question, Chief Tanner, how are your officers doing that were involved in this shooting?
Well, you know, it's a heart-wrenching and a difficult time, as you personally know. And I would say, if I may, Peel officers who dealt with the scene, Hamilton and Halton officers who dealt with the scene in Milton, and Halton and Hamilton officers who dealt with the altercation in Hamilton. There's a degree of trauma for all of those people. There's also the added stress of a special investigations unit investigation, even when you did absolutely nothing wrong, and time will bear that.
Steve, thank you very much, and I do appreciate that outpour of support for our police officers as well. As Chief Tanner has indicated, we both share the burden of having subject officers and witness officers involved, but as also as Chief from Peel has indicated, that our members continue to come to work. As this was unfolding, as we were made aware of it in the Hamilton region and getting the initial information of what had occurred in the parking lot, you can imagine already that impact on the policing community. Then you ramp that up from a Hamilton perspective as it starts moving west through Halton and ultimately ending up in our jurisdiction. I was so proud of the men and women of the Hamilton Police Service to stand shoulder to shoulder, shoulder flash to shoulder flash, be supported by all the civilian people who had our back, who had those communications. That was an example of that. Together, stronger, safer, we can work together to make this community work. Our members have continued to come to work. Our members, all standing up here representing, will continue to come to work and serve this city, this municipality, this province, and this country.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone in this room for attending. Our news conference is now complete. Thank you.